So if you're a fan of Earth machines, you've probably heard of the upcoming Therions archetype. Supporting a bunch of different types, but let's be honest, only meaningfully supporting machines and plants, they're a whole archetype that continues the story of Albers and Ecclesia, but will basically be relegated to being a small engine in a few different decks. This is mostly because of Therion King Regulus. It can summon itself from the hand by targeting either another Therion or a machine monster in the graveyard, and then it equips it. Once on the field, it's an Omni-Negate, needing to send a Therions card either from your hand or field to activate. Obviously, getting a machine into the graveyard isn't very difficult. Can be done in under 5 summons, and rewarding you as an Omni-Negate to protect your plays is a very nice reward. So, if you were smart, you'd combine this with Earth machines, as in Machina Infinitrack with a few tech cards. It's been a fairly competitive deck for a while now, since it's resilient and can keep generating resources. However, that's too simple, too easy. I will be combining them with Earth machines alright, but not the Earth machines you're thinking of. No, instead I'll be combining them with Karakuris. If you've never heard of this archetype, they're also Earth machines, but instead of them being mostly Exusers and Links, they're a synchro deck. What makes them fun is how they're one of those archetypes where Konami basically just forgot to put hard once per turns on all of their effects. This gets wild when you realise that, every single time you synchro summon one of their extra deck monsters, they get to summon any Karakuri monster straight from the deck. The applications of this are, well, I'm sure you can imagine. Baron, Borrelade, or even their own level 9 synchro that can banish your opponent's cards. They make pretty impressive boards, with the only problem being that they're fairly fragile to interruption. Hence the inclusion of Therions. The two work together like a charm. After all, you can have your 3 copies of Regulus, but they also have a field spell that searches Regulus for you, bringing you up to 7 copies of it thanks to terraforming. And remember what I was saying about Karakuris not being hard once per turns? Well, their level 8 synchro draws you a card when the battle position of a Karakuri is changed, so you can trigger this multiple times per turn, making you even more likely to draw into the Therions package and add a free negate to your board. Sounds good? Well, let's take a look at the deck profile then. Here it is. First of all, I'm going to start with the Therions package. I kept it pretty small, since overall most of the Therions cards don't do too much for this deck, and running too many Therions to get their effects off of each other just did not seem worth it. It does mean that Regulus will need to send himself most of the time, but that's okay since the field spell does end up recycling it anyway. Anyway, all we need to run is 3 Regulus and 3 Colosseum, with the terraforming to search the searcher. Don't worry about redundancy either, since if you draw both Regulus and a field spell, you can just use the second Regulus you'll search to pay the discard cost of the first one on the field. Now onto the Karakuris. Run 3 Bones, Komachi, Merchant and Gamma, along with 1 Watchdog and 1 Strategist. Bones is the only one that can summon itself from the hand, but if you do you'll be locked into Earth machines, so save it for as late as possible. It will be an emergency tuner when you do that though, which can come in handy. It's more useful for being a level 5 non-tuner when summoned from the deck though, helping you build more synchros to then synchro climb with. Komachi is a pretty good normal summon, allowing you to get another Karakuri out onto the field, preferably Merchant for its search, and then it's a tuner so you can go into Hulk. Merchant by itself isn't great since it won't get you into Hulk, but if you do have one in your hand, wait until a Karakuri synchro can summon Komachi from the deck, so then you can get its normal summon and then a search. Whether you'll search Gamma Oil or Cash In depends on whether you want to combo harder or just vary your interruptions, but if you do go for the trap, try to end with a few Brebus on the field to get the banishes from it as well. Gamma isn't that great to start in your hand with, but it is your main synchro climb tool. Make sure to leave 1 in the graveyard to get your Karakuri's effects on your opponent's turn, but if you can, try to shuffle 2 of them back with Infinitrack Tunneler to allow even more synchro climbing. Watchdog is just here to be a level 4 tuner, letting you make a second beret with your Auroradon tokens, and then Strategist allows you to trigger your synchros on demand, hopefully allowing you to draw or banish some cards. For their back row, I opted for 2 Gamma Oil, 1 Cash Cash and 1 Cash In. Instead of 3 Gamma Oil, which is a hard once per turn, I run 2 of it and a Monster Reborn, just to make you less likely to brick on it. You could run 3 anyway though by cutting the Cash Cash, which is honestly not amazing in this version of the deck, It doesn't search Bones, the only Karakuri that actually summons itself from the hand, and it needs a Karakuri on the field to work anyway, so you won't be getting much use out of it outside of specifically Komachi into Merchant. The one trap is here because it's searchable, so you don't really need more. We then run a small Infinitrack package of 3 Anchor Drill, 1 Tunneler, and 2 Heavy Forward, essentially giving you 5 copies of Anchor Drill. It's one of your best starters, often getting you straight into Hulk, but even if you brick and can only summon Anchor Drill into Bones, you can use its second effect to make them level 9, going into Hyperiton, or into VFD and Master Duels, but that's for another day. Tunneler's a little harder to get into your graveyard in this version of the deck, but it's still worth running at 1 in case you have both Drill and Heavy Forwards. Try to tribute something like a Merchant, essentially raising the level of your non-tuner enough to make a synchro summon possible. Finally, it's a Hulk deck, so there's a desk bot. We don't actually bother with Cold Swing since we can combo just fine without it, and we really don't want the extra brick. Then for generic stuff, Ready Fusion and even Instant Fusion are both amazing in this deck. They're a free tuner whenever you want, thanks to the most powerful card of 2017, and Ready Fusion is even a level 6 non-tuner if you need one. 3 extenders are exactly what this deck needs, so they're all well worth it. After Monster Reborn we run 3 Forbidden Droplets. This deck OTK is incredibly easy going second, so this can help with that, and also the discarding is fine since after your normal summon, any of the Karakuris you draw are probably not going to be doing anything, so you might as well get rid of them for this. It will also get a machine into the graveyard, so you can immediately use Regulus if you have one, protecting your plays in case you couldn't negate everything with Droplet. Now for the extra deck. The Karakuris do take up a lot of space, but you'll get through a ton of them during your combos, so you do kind of need to run a lot of them in order to make good use of this deck. I gave for 3 of the level 8 and 9, and then 2 of the level 7. The level 7 is mostly just a starter for your synchro climbing, since you can make it with Despot and the 2 tokens, and then again with the last token and a Watchdog. Then you can just skip straight into Bahun with a level 3 tuner. Make sure to get some draws from the level 8 while you synchro climb, since that's what makes this deck's combos different to any old Hulk or Orodon combo. Bahun and Bowlade are just your good negates, but don't forget that once you've used Bahun's negate, you can return her to get a Karakuri synchro, either getting a draw or a banish. Hulk and Auroradon are fairly self-explanatory, and then Hyperiton is possible to make either with 2 Bravus, or an Anchor Drill and a Bones. Then these are your 2 Ready Fusion targets, using Steam Gyroid since it's an Earth machine, and you might get locked into those. If you can't afford a playset of Droplets, other options are Urgent Schedule, letting you go second a lot more easily, or Machine Duplication, which can lead to some very cool combos. I just didn't find space for them in this build, so I left them out. Also, you could try to run Riverstormer to search Regulus, but you rarely have 2 level 5s out at the same time, so it just didn't really seem to come up enough to be relevant. Anchor Drill summoning Gamma is the most likely situation in which you'll make this though, so it's good for situations like that if you can spare the extra deck space. Anyway, that's it for the deck list, but if you know anything about Karakuris, you know that their combos are where it really gets fun. So let's have a look at those now. So now I'll be showing you some test hands. But first, if you've been enjoying this video so far, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. In this first hand we have Colosseum, so we'll use it to search Regulus. Then Heavy Forward searches Anchor Drill, which we can normal summon to get out a Strategist, which gives us a tuner and a non-tuner. Make a Hulk, getting out a Deskbot, and then protect your plays with Regulus. Under that Omni Negate you can make an Auroradon, and get your tokens and Deskbot out. Use 3 to make a Beret, you get out a Gamma to make a Bowlade with 2 negates. Now we can extend with Ready Fusion, getting out a Theseus. With a token, we'll make a Bereader, who summons a Gamma. We can then use the Graveyard Gamma to be able to draw a card. After that, climb into Berebu, use Gamma Oil to bring back the Bereader, and then climb further into a Bahun. You'll end with 3 Omni Negates and a draw on demand thanks to Bereader and Gamma. For this second hand, we'll start in a similar way, making a Hulk out of a tuner and a non-tuner, and then protecting our plays with Regulus as our 5th summon. Now since we have Tunneler in our hand, it's an okay time to tribute the Despot to get it onto the field. We'll want it into the graveyard to draw 2 later on, and we get the Despot back anyway. Make Bure to get a Gamma, and then climb into a Burebu, this time getting Watchdog onto the field. It'll synchro summon into another Bure, getting out a Strategist to give us a draw before making a Baron. Ready Fusion can now get out a Sea Monster, and with enough machines in the graveyard to shuffle back, Tunneler gets us 2 more draws. Gamma Oil can bring back Gamma to go into Burebu, we'll summon a Merchant, who makes another Bure, getting out another Gamma to make a Borrelade Savage Dragon. We once again end with 3 Omni Negates, this time with a Banish that we can trigger on demand thanks to the Gamma, and then a Forbidden Droplet, which don't forget can use the equip cards from Borrelade and Regulus to fuel its negates. For this third hand, we'll once again want to start with heavy forwards, allowing us to get out Komachi, whose normal summon gets out Gamma in our hand. This will allow us to extend later on, after doing the Halkarorodon plays. You'll use your tokens to make a Bure, bringing out a Watchdog to make another Bure. That gets out our second Gamma, to make a Buredo, and our third Gamma. Now we play Monster Reborn for a Bure, and make a second Buredo with it and Gamma. That will get out Strategist, allowing us to draw 2, before synchroing into a Baron. We can now make a Burebu, bringing out Bones, before reviving a Buredo to draw another card thanks to Gamma. All of this drawing finally gets us a Regulus, and so, we can make room for it in a fairly brutal way, just by blowing up our own bonds with Baron. Once the space is freed up, you can just get a Regulus out. For a board with 2 Omni Negates and, on demand, a Banish backed up with 2 draws. Finally, this last hand doesn't have Komechi or Anchor Drill, so we'll have to make Hulk another way. We'll start by searching Colosseum, and then use that to search Regulus. From there, normal summon a Merchant to get a cash in, and use Instant Fusion to get us a tuner for Hulk. We once again do the Hulk combo and protect it with Regulus, before getting everything else out. We'll go Bure into Watchdog, into another Bure, using the Gamma it summons to make a Buredo. We can then summon out a Komachi. Her extra normal summon gets out a Strategist, will get us a draw of Ready Fusion by changing Komachi's position. Now make a Baron, and use Ready Fusion for a non-tuner this time, letting us go straight into Burebu. That gets us a Gamma to make a second Burebu, who gets out a Bones. We could end here, relying on the double Banish, or we could make them into a Hyperiton for another negate. In the end, we this time end on 2 Omni Negates, a Monster Negate from Hyperiton, another negate thanks to Cashin who can use Bones as a target, and then a Forbidden Droplet who can use the Field Spell, the equipped monster, or even just a Aurorodon, to fuel its discards for even more negates. And so that's the deck! Will you be giving Karakuris a try now that they can protect their plays from Nibiru? Tell me in the comments below, and while you're down there, don't forget to like and subscribe. Special thanks to my tier 3 patron, Distran, as well as my tier 2 patrons Jason Murat and Violet Rain. The link to that is in the description. Thanks for watching!